Friends, it's so fitting that this is the Sabbath when the Torah clarifies how we got our name as Jews. For it is in this week's Torah portion, Vayetze, Genesis 28 to 32, from which Kendall will chant tomorrow, where the origin of the name Jew is explained. Jacob's wife, Leah, has a fourth child and says, Hapa'am odeat Adonai al ken kara shemo Yehuda, which means, I give thanks to the source of life. So I'm calling him Judah, which means to be thankful. That's where the name Jew comes from, Judah, to be thankful. And that is why the sages teach our ancestors took on the name of Judah, because to be a Jew means to be thankful. I spoke on this theme this past Tuesday night at our community interfaith Thanksgiving service with 11 congregations, 9 Christian, the Memphis Islamic Center, and Temple. At that service, we stressed, and I hope you agree, that it is through gratefulness that a person says yes to life, even and especially when times are tough. Because when you live in a state of thankfulness beyond yesterday's holiday, when you live in a state of gratefulness, you become more conscious of each moment and all its simple and complex blessings. The hot coffee, the favorite sweater, the car that starts, the friend that calls, the sun that shines. When you live in a state of gratefulness, you make a choice to focus on what it is that you love about life, even and especially when times are tough. You know, among the first prayers a Jew is supposed to say when you wake up each morning are 2 words that are grammatically incorrect. Modeh ani. It means, thank you, I. When I take our group to Israel next month, I'm going to say, Ani modeh, I thank you a lot, not thank you I. Why is the daily Jewish prayer, thank you I, not I thank you? Because until I give thanks first, I'm not quite me. Until I put myself second before whoever brought me into this world to experience this new night and this lifetime, I'm not really ready to pray. So this faith family we're all a part of has been called a number of names over time. Hebrew people, Ivri, Yehudi for Judah, to be thankful. And then this week, we get our third name as a people. We will not become known as B'nai Avraham, children of Abraham, which would have been a good choice, right? Since Abraham was the first Jew. Our moniker will not be B'nai Yitzchak, another good choice, children of Isaac, even though we're that too. We become known starting this week in the Torah as B'nai Yaakov, the children of Jacob, whose name will become Israel after his wrestling and struggle. In case you didn't know, and Judy Ringel's History of Temple Israel's first 150 years backs this up. This synagogue was founded in 1854, not as Temple Israel, but as Children of Israel, B'nai Yaakov. It was not only in the 1940s when Congregation Children of Israel was shortened to Temple Israel. Now, we can understand why we're associated with Thanksgiving for Judah and Judaism's attitude of gratitude, but of the three patriarchs, why Jacob? Isaac means laughter, a gift which Judaism has also given the world, and not just because of the Jewish proclivity for comedy. We Jews have always held that God must have a sense of humor. Just look at us. Yom Kippurim, the serious day of atonement, is linked to Yom Kippurim, the joy of Purim, when we are commanded to laugh and to celebrate, to make the most of the happy times, no matter what life throws our way. So Isaac would have been a good choice. So would Abraham. But Jacob, that spoiled kid, Jacob, whose name means to wrestle and struggle, Ah, the rabbis say, that's the point. To be a Jew is to never be satisfied with pat answers to the mysteries of life. To be a Jew is to admit that we all wrestle, we all struggle, we're always in quest. To be a Jew is to stand up and speak up in the struggle for justice, goodness, and life in this world. To be a Jew is to struggle with life struggles, even if it means saying things people may not be used to hearing. On Monday evening, for instance, when I speak to the families of homicide victims in Shelby County at City Hall, all the family members, I'm going to tell them something they probably never heard from their pastors. I'm going to tell them that they do not have to forgive the person who murdered their parent, child, spouse, or sibling. If these mourners are moved to forgive a murderer, they should, of course, do so. We should never discourage anyone from offering forgiveness. But to tell another person how they must feel or that they must forgive murderers who demonstrate no remorse sends the wrong message to the mourner who is a God wrestler, who is struggling like Jacob. A message that's sent is, you don't have enough goodness in your heart if you don't forgive. The message of, you haven't mourned correctly if you haven't risen to that level of forgiveness. This pressure only adds to the suffering of people whose hearts are already burdened with untold pain. So Abraham had the courage to speak up for innocent victims at Sodom and Gomorrah, but then he flunked the test with a blind faith that almost led him to kill his own son Isaac until God called it off. Isaac was so traumatized that we have his wife Rebekah to thank for carrying that generation of our people. It's Jacob's struggle. Every Jew here has that name, both internal and everything life throws Jacob's way. That's what Judaism sees as most resonant. Jacob, if you didn't know, Yaakov is actually derived from the Hebrew word for crooked. And Jacob can be manipulative and conniving. He uses his father's blindness to steal the blessing from his brother. He even attempts to twist the arm of God this week. Let me just give you one quote before I close. He says in Kendall's portion, if God remains with me, if God protects me, if God, then I'll set aside 10% for you. What kind of role model is that guy? Negotiating conditions with God, forgiving rather than just giving what you should. So friends, the Jacob story that begins this Sabbath is you and me, because it chronicles the growth of a soul, the development of a mensch. Jacob wrestles with the angel, starts out selfish, like everyone here, myself included, has been. He makes mistakes, big mistakes. He learns, changes, struggles. And in this process, the hand of God is revealed. Jacob's, whose life is far from a straight line, crooked, will become Yisrael, which comes from the root to make things straight, to make things as best we can in spite of life's twists and turns, and to see that every step of life has its own revelation. When you open yourself to the love of a partner, when you make peace with a brother or sister, to mourn, and then to rise and to live again. God is present in each step, each choice, each moment, or, as God assures Jacob in closing, when he begins the journey of our namesake this week. Remember, God says, I am with you. I will not leave you. I will be with you wherever you go. In all your suffering and struggle, God promises, remember, I am not finished with you. I urge every Jew here to embrace his or her namesake, B'nai Yaakov, children of Jacob, and discover through Judaism a way of life that brings meaning, purpose, hope, and direction at every stage of life, knowing that the one to whom our thanks is due is with us every step of the way.